What up, though? BCV channel, stand up. Truth in the room. Book, chapter, verse.
Pastor Seiko step in with the scrolls on deck. Open Bible in his hand like a spiritual tech. He don't argue with opinions, he present that proof. Pulling book, chapter, verse, that's receipts and truth. BCV bringing heat from the word so clean. Psalm 19:7 perfect, make the simple serene. Yes, sir. He cut through lies with a razor sharp aim. Hebrews 4:12, sword swinging through the game. No matter what the culture push, trends or hype. Seiko stick to scripture, never switch up the type. And he teach like the text, breathing life on the track. Cause the words stay relevant, that's a stone cold fact. Relevant book, chapter, verse, let the scripture speak first. Say cold, bring the proof, watch the falsehoods disperse. From the streets to the church, from the hurt to the worst. The word of God reigns, that's eternal universe. Books, book, chapter, verse, let the scripture speak first. Say cold, bring the proof, watch the falsehoods disperse. From the streets to the church, from the hurt to the worst. The word of God reigns, that's eternal universe. Chapter, verse, yeah. Book, chapter, verse, book, chapter, verse, book, chapter, verse, then go. Book, chapter, chapter, verse, book, chapter, chapter, verse, book, chapter, verse, book, chapter, verse, ain't book, chapter, chapter, verse, book, chapter, verse, book, chapter, verse, book, chapter, verse, then go. Book, chapter, verse, book, chapter, verse, book, chapter, verse, book, chapter, verse, ain't book, chapter, chapter, verse, book, chapter, chapter, verse, book, chapter, chapter, verse, book, chapter, verse, book, chapter, verse, ain't book, chapter, chapter, verse.
Do you ever find it difficult to remove your personal opinion or your personal feelings, or do you ever feel like there were moments where you felt like you were almost too close and had to take a step back in order to give the story the justification that it needed to be told unbiased?
Oh, this is not unbiased.
Well,
You know what I mean? Like this is completely slanted to what I believe was never told and never said and never seen. Even 13th, you know, I tried to show as much as I could to give context, but I wasn't necessarily interested in balance.
It's unfortunate that, you know, these movies, documentaries, and Netflix series do not show the evidence. So let's go over the evidence. When those kids came out of the park, they were confronted by Officer Reynolds and his partner and the other female officer who was on the scooter. They were able to catch 5 of them: Michael Briscoe, Kevin Richardson, Santana Lopez, and Clarence Thomas. Out of those young men, Clarence Thomas gets put in the backseat of the car and starts crying.
2 of the kids were crying and saying, I didn't do the murder, but I know who it was. It was Antron McCray, and I'll tell you where he lives.
Did you start to cry in the police car?
Yes.
And did you start to say something to the police?
That's when I began to ask, yes.
Did you say that you knew who the murderer was?
After they had said that the person was essentially dead, that's when I said that.
What did you say to him?
I said that I know the person who killed him. You know, I was crying and stuff. Because I remember as they came back, I seen Antron with the pipe, and they were saying that he was beaten over the head. And I figured it was Antron since he came back with the pipe.
Did you tell the police it was Antron?
Yes.
Now, when they said they didn't do the murder, my assumption, we all assumed, that they were talking about the gentleman, and this guy was a teacher, his name was John Laughlin. We thought they were talking about him because he was beaten so badly, we assumed that they thought they killed him.
So this is the beginning of these kids beginning to incriminate themselves. And a lot of people think that the police coerced these kids into talking about this stuff, and they did not. They offered up this information voluntarily, as you just saw with Clarence Thomas. He admitted to beginning to cry in the police car, and automatically he goes into telling on himself, telling on everybody else that's there. Who starts to snitch next? And the next person who starts to confess is Kevin Richardson. They had found the body of Patricia Miley. Well, I wouldn't say body because she was alive, but they found her very badly beaten. And so they needed to find out if anybody who was in the park at that time saw anything. So they wanted to question the boys because that's just police procedure. So they questioned two of them, Clarence Thomas and Lamont McCall, with their parents, and they didn't know anything. So they let them go home. Kevin Richardson was the third person that they questioned, and Kevin Richardson had a scratch on his face. So the police asked about the scratch.
Now, contrary to popular belief, we did not ask him about the female jogger. That's not the way that we operate. We get their full statement first, and then we go back and we ask them more questions. And the thing that we do is we get the answers before we ask them the questions. This way we know when they're lying. He had a scratch under his eye, and one of the detectives said to him, well, how did you get that scratch? And he said that my partner Bobby scratched him when he was arresting him. So the detective said to him, okay, Bobby's next door. I'm going to go ask him, and you had better be telling the truth. At that point, Kevin Richardson said, okay, it was the female jogger that scratched me. When he said that, because none of us were expecting it, it was almost like a bomb went off. Now we realized, okay, we got a different problem on our hands. We just let two of them go.
So this point is very significant because they didn't tell Richardson about the jogger. He didn't know about the female jogger. He simply gave that information up. Now, this is what sunk the ship. The whole Central Park 5 ship was sunk by Kevin Richardson in this moment. And you have to remember, when Corey was giving his testimony, he also talked about Kevin getting scratched in the face by the lady.
Steve ripped her pants with his knife. That's what made her mad. And that's when she started scratching him. What's the name? Kevin.
Now, when did they get together and share this story to tell the police officers? Now, if you watch the Burns documentary, they act like he got hit by an officer. And this never happened. But then you have to think about how they two would get together and come up with concoct this story of him getting scratched by the jogger. Both Corey Wise mentioned his face getting scratched, and he mentions it himself. And then later, when they're doing the documentary, they act like this never happened, like they never came up with this stuff. It's amazing. Now, this is what the Netflix series doesn't tell you. This is what the Ken Burns documentary doesn't tell you. This isn't what the Central Park 5 book tells you. None of them tell you this significant piece of information, but it is the loose lip that sunk the ship, so to speak. And they all went on to tell on one another. These guys are the most celebrated snitches in Black history. But eventually, it wasn't just about them talking on camera or behind closed doors. At some point before he was picked up, Corey Wise was telling people in the street that the police were looking for him. He was approached by two of his friends, Ronald Williams and Shabazz Head. They were told by Wise to get the hell away from them because the police were after him. So they walked away. But a little while later, they ran into him again and they asked him why the police were actually after him. And Wise responded, "You heard about that woman that was beat up and raped in the park last night? That was us." So he told Shabazz Head and Ronald Williams this, who later got on the stand and testified to this. Later, just before the trial, Corey was on the phone with Melody Jackson, who is the sister of one of his friends, and he called from jail. So apparently Melody didn't want Corey to do any prison time. She wanted his court case to go well. She took this call from Wise from Rikers Island when he was in Rikers. She asked him, "Hey, Corey, did you do what the newspapers are saying that you did?" Corey's response to her was that he didn't rape anyone. He only held her legs down while Kevin cuffed her. Now, this woman, Melody Jackson, thought that this information would be helpful to Corey because it proves that Corey was innocent. He didn't have sex with the woman. However, we all know that holding a woman down while someone else penetrates her it makes you an accomplice. So you are an accomplice to rape. So even with her doing that, and she did testify as well. She had testified to this had this conversation, and the phone records do show that he made that phone call. It also must be noted that none of the boys admitted to having sex with the jogger. They may have simulated sex, but they didn't penetrate her.
Then you got on top of her. Did you have your pants down when you did that?
No.
Did you have your fly open?
Yeah, but my penis wasn't in her.
What happened?
I just, like, my penis wasn't in her. I didn't put nothing in. I didn't put nothing to her.
Well, when you got on top of her, you got on top of her so that you could have sex with her, right?
Not really. I just doing it so everybody know. I wasn't, like, really doing it.
You said you were just doing it so that everybody what?
Like, everybody just know I did it.
Well, how long did you, when you got on top of her, you had your penis out of your pants?
Yes.
And it was between her legs?
No.
It was against her?
Yeah.
And did you rub against her?
Yeah.
Did you have an erection?
No.
There was also lots of other evidence, blood evidence, which again doesn't get mentioned by the media. So there were blood stains on Santana's right sneaker, Yusuf Salam's jacket, and on Lopez's underwear. There were also semen stains that were found in the underwear of McCrae and Richardson. And somehow Santana had semen on his sweatshirt. And then there was the evidence of hairs. They found hairs that were consistent with the female jogger's hair on Kevin Richardson's clothing and on Stephen Lopez. If that wasn't enough, you also had soil on the victim, McCrae, Santana, and Richardson. Now, it should be noted that DNA evidence was a new science. It had only first begun to be used in 1985 overseas and came to America in 1987. That's just 2 years before the Central Park case. Furthermore, the methods used to get trace evidence changed considerably in the 1990s. So in this particular case, you find that there's a lack of conclusive evidence on the blood. So all the blood that's found on them, for the most part, was inconclusive. They don't know whose blood it was. But the fact that they had blood on them at all and semen should give you some amount of pause, especially when some of it was found in their underwear. So as you can see, along with the testimony, you had physical evidence. Why is that not in the Netflix series? Why is that not in the newsreels? Why is that not being asked of these guys when they do interviews? Because people don't want to hear the truth, that's why.
Now, the rest of the story.
Chapter verse, chapter verse, chapter verse, chapter verse.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the BCV broadcast. I'm your host, Pastor Seiko Woods. Please do the following. Please like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell at the bottom of this video. That way, whenever I go live or post any content for you, the viewer, you'll be one of the first to view it. Also, if you'd like to support this ministry financially, first and foremost, thank you. All of you, those of you who have supported this ministry and also love life and marriage with the Woods with your prayers and also tangible expressions of love and financial support. But if you'd like us to continue to support this ministry, would like to become a body lifer. Body lifers are those who are simply outside of their normal support and their local fellowship. Would like to support ministries such as this and also love life and marriage with the Woods. You can click the donation links below. At the bottom of this video, there's no particular amount that you have to have or must start off with. We are just appreciating. We also encourage you to use those donation links instead of using the super chat. As you notice, when I see comments, I don't charge or ask anyone to donate super chat in order for me to read your comment. I believe if you've taken time out of your busy schedule to participate in these chat discussions, and if your comment or question or inquiry is worth giving attention to, or if I have time to do that, then I believe then doing that should not cost a fee. And so, but to each his own. But I just want to encourage you all to use the donation links below instead of using the super chat for two reasons. Number one, because we're using the super chat, they take fees out of it. YouTube, we also do not receive your gifts in the same expedited format as you would if you would use the donation links below. It takes about a month and a half due to the revenue cycle, depending on when those gifts are sent through super chat. And so also there's the third reason, and there's a threshold. Many of you may not know that, and so super chats require at least $100 before we would ever receive your gift. And so you may have given me $50, but if there's no other donations or support through super chat, then that $50 just sits in the kitty until it reaches the $100 threshold. And so this is why we encourage you to use the donation links below. There are no tax requirements with that. And we're able to receive your gifts in the same fashion and format that you send it. And so if you so choose to use Super Chat, we thank you nonetheless. We just wanted to inform you of that. I also like to support the ministry through the BCV store. You can go to our BCV store link. It is also listed below in the video description at the bottom of this video. And you can also purchase hoodies, hats, shirts, mugs, things of that nature, whatever we have there in the store. You can shop them to your drop. Thank you all so much for that. Moderators, thank you for joining. Facebook family, good to see everyone. Thank you all for your prayers. I want to say a special thank you to all of you who have been praying for me and my family. You all heard about the accident and incident that I had sustained a couple weeks ago due to a intestinal issue that I was diagnosed with, which was called melena. Many of you have reached out to me, and thank you so much for that. And thank you for your prayers and your support and checking in on me and my family. A special shout out and special public thank you to my wife and to my children, both here and away. Definitely appreciate you all. And thank you guys so much for being here for yours truly. They're one of the reasons why I do what I do. Really the main reason. And so I do thank you all so much for that. So if there's a little bit of a slight slur in my speech, I still have stitches that are still healing inwardly in my lip and also just under my bottom lip. And so hopefully, Lord willing, if I go live again in another week or so, these stitches will be removed. The inside or inside of my lip, those should be dissolved. I have one more suture to basically dissolve, but the ones outside, I have to have those removed. And so my lip is still sore. My jaw's doing fine. I had fell on the right side of my face and was unconscious for a few seconds, almost a minute. And so my jaw was very sore. Thank God there was no fractures in my face or my skull. And so I'm grateful to the Lord for his mercy and grateful for his grace, but I'm doing fine. And I praise God for that. And thank you all again for your prayers. All right. So anyway, also just want to let's be praying also for the troops and service members and for Operation Epic Fury and those that are involved in that. Pray for the missing service member who was shot down in the F-15E. Pray that they will be recovered and found safe, and that the enemy will not find their location, and that they will be returned home to their fellow service members and ultimately their families. So let's be praying for them as well. Pray for our leaders. Pray for those that are involved in this campaign. And we know that the king's heart is in the hand of our Lord. And the Bible says in Proverbs 21:1, and like rivers and channels of water, he turns it whithersoever he will. So those of you who are here, again, thank you so much for being here. You all saw and heard the beginning clip of this broadcast. We're going to be talking about the Central Park Five. Some of them have been called and are now being called the Exonerated Five. We're going to talk about that. I believe they are not exonerated. I believe words have meaning and have definition. And we're going to talk about that with me and my special guest, Mr. Shee Brown from Consider Culture podcast. Some of you may be familiar with him, but this would be the first time that this gentleman will be here on the BCB broadcast, he and I together. It's been long overdue, but thank the Lord we are able to come together and to dialogue, and we have a lot to discuss and to talk about. This here for me, if you know, as Christians, we stand for righteousness. We stand for justice. We hate injustice. We hate dishonest scales. And this is why the Bible tells us in Proverbs chapter 17, verse 15, he who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the righteous, what? Both alike are an abomination to the Lord. When you find people praising the wicked, or the quote-unquote Central Park Five, or the exonerated, quote-unquote exonerated five, and saying that they are no longer guilty, that they are exonerated, and now those who have been victimized, those who have been scarred for life, both physically and mentally, they're the ones that are the enemy. They're the ones that were trying to put black men in jail or minorities in jail. The Bible says that this is abomination. This is wicked. It's wickedness, bottom line. But not only that, when people are so quick to judge without having the facts, as Miss LaKeisha Keisha, I'll talk about her in another subsequent live. I'll deal with that. That'll be a slow roast. I'll talk about that lady at another live and dedicate some time specifically to her. But for nonetheless, individuals like her and others, particularly within the black community, who pass judgment without gathering the facts and don't even care to know the facts. They just want to give their own view and their own opinion. The Bible says this, Proverbs 18:13, he who gives an answer before he hears, it is a folly, it is foolishness and a disgrace for him. But those of us who examine the facts, those of us who are critical thinkers and ask questions before we assume, the Bible says the first to plead his case seems right until another comes and examines him. Our whole judicial system is based on this particular verse. The cross-examinations, people asking questions, probing, digging, drilling down. Yeah, we're all called to do that. You don't even have to be a Christian. You just have to have common sense to know that, hey, this doesn't smell right. This doesn't pass muster. I have questions. This doesn't seem right. And so tonight, I want to bring on my guest, Shee Brown. If you have not been familiar with his work, I would encourage you to go to his channel, his YouTube channel. It's titled Consider Culture. And also he has a channel called centralpark5.com, centralpark5.com. And all that information is located below at the bottom of this video. But without any further ado, let's bring on my special guest, Mr. Shee Brown. What's going on,
Thank
man?
you. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much. How
I
you
didn't
doing,
expect
man?
all that applause.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How you doing, man?
I'm good, and you?
Good, man. Like I said in the green room before we got on live. It's been a long time coming, long overdue. But I'm glad to have you here. Let people know a bit about yourself and about your work and what you do and how long you've been in these social media streets. I want to give you the microphone before we get started. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the viewers, man. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so my name is Chi Brown. I host Considered Culture, which is kind of like a podcast, but more just a video channel. And I have, other social medias where I'm basically pointing out some of the issues in the Black community and trying to come up with solutions to some of that stuff. I've been doing it since 2006. In 2006, I started with another channel, which was called the For Change Movement. And then I also was on MySpace, and I had a boycott of BET. I went to school for journalism at North Carolina Central University, HBCU, and did internships at the New York Times and at Duke University. So, I guess we can get into the case in a little bit, but that's basically who I am.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to have you on, man. And like I said, we've been I guess following each other's work for quite some time. I think our schedules and just life had been life, and we were not able to to connect. But what made you decide to even come on to my broadcast? Because I know you may have been hearing a little bit about me and things of that nature per se, maybe not. But what made you decide to come on, man, and to have this discussion about this particular topic?
Yeah, so we had conversations for, I don't know. So like you said, it had to have been well before COVID. We've been having conversations, you and and I just out of a mutual respect for the things that you're doing, and just seeing that you wanted to kind of highlight this case, which I think is super important. I took the time out, 4 months of my life to kind of research the case and put the information out there, and has got a little bit of traction, but
Yeah.
not as much as you would expect.
Right.
So that's always a good opportunity for me to share it with other people.
Yeah, I mean, again, if y'all have not checked out his website, again, go over there. The link is below in the bottom of the video description. You need to check it out. It is a treasure trove worth of information. You would not be disappointed. And if this was just a teaser of what I provided to you all, that 12-minute video clip, there's much more that you would be enlightened and also encouraged to know that you're not crazy. We're not the only ones out here that's seeing what we're seeing and say, wait a minute, this don't look right, bro. This don't look right at all. I got questions, right? So you're not by yourself. We're in good company. And so I'm glad to be in your good company as well, too, She. So, man, let's get right into it, man. You watched the video that I did earlier this week. As a matter of fact, I believe I had tagged you and sent you the link as well as other people. I was invited as a guest on Lakeisha Keisha's podcast to discuss Anton Daniels and him being a fake Christian or a fraud and things of that nature. Now, for me as a Christian, that was the reason why I reached out to this young lady, because as a Christian, when people misrepresent the faith that I represent and the God that I serve and the Christ that I'm under, whose lordship, then I feel some kind of way about that, right? And so I reached out to this young lady and I said, hey, I understand that you may see this guy as, a fraud, and which he is, because you can't be a Christian and claiming to, everywhere you go, you always around a bad chick. I don't know any man, particularly, matter of fact, you don't even have to be a Christian, but any man with common sense that's married would say something like that, unless you just don't care about your wife and you just don't respect her. But nonetheless, he claimed to be a Christian. So I said, well, let me just go on and reach out to this individual. And I've reached out to a few other people and said, hey, I would love to have a conversation with you about that, and also explain that is not biblical Christianity. So I went in with the intent to talk about Anton Daniels. Did not know that she would be, I know how she felt about Trump, but did not know that it was going to take that particular turn. But I had no problem addressing it and discussing it. But when she started to mention the Central Park Five, I knew that she did not know what she was talking about. It was the typical talking points. It was the typical response and emotional knee-jerk reaction and saying that they were exonerated, that they were not guilty, the whole nine. And so for me, that's when I wanted to try to inform her viewers and her listeners of what the truth of that case was about, and even provided her with your link, provided her with other links and other content that she could check out for herself. And if you can remember, she was not interested in that. And I believe that is the mindset and the pathology of the Black community as a whole. Of course, not everyone, but as a whole, there seem to be allergic to truth and to facts. Why is that?
You know what? I think it has to do with the notion that we've been hurt in the past. Of course, we've come from slavery, Jim Crow, all of these things, and we like to keep those things fresh on one another's minds. And any opportunity to kind of get some get back in the form of, when something's been wrong, something wrong has been done to us, we want to show that some of this is probably due to the racism, and this particular story, it looks like, okay, maybe it's because these boys were Black and brown that this happened to them. So I think that is a part of why people hold on to it. Plus, victimhood in general is leverage. It's social capital to some degree, and even for people who are just the average Joe, it can help them out in psychologically. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I want to jump into what we were talking about earlier. I want to share this clip, and I'm going to share the interview, not its entirety, but it's about, I'm going to say about 7 minutes, I guess, of the conversation that I had with Lakeisha. And feel free to chime in if I need to stop in any particular part in the video and you want to add some context or add correction or either insight into that. But for the audience's sake, I wanted them to get your thoughts and reaction to it. So we're going to jump right into this video. Let's get into it.
So what about the Central Park 5 when he did that large ad and they were kids and wanted them to go to prison for something that we know that they didn't even do?
That's not true. That's not true, Lakeisha. That's not true. They did. They admitted. They admitted with their parents right there in the room. In fact, I interviewed the detective himself. I interviewed him on my live, and they admitted on record. You can, matter of fact, I can send you the link.
You do know that they have been cleared of all of those charges, right?
Being exonerated does not mean that you were not guilty. You admitted that you almost beat this woman, that you almost unalived this woman. You admitted that you did this. That's all I'm saying. I'm like, okay, so they're on record. All 5 of the boys are on record. Okay, all of them on record admitting this. They were not denied any food. They were not denied any rights. Their parents were right there in the interrogation room, admitting to the crime that they committed. Admitted that they were the ones that assaulted the jogger. Trump put out an ad in the paper saying that these people who did this should seek the death penalty, whatever. I think I'm forgetting the verbiage of the article. But you do know that there were Black people that wanted this also to happen to those boys that did it to this woman as well, too.
Well, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about Trump.
Okay, what about Trump? What about Trump?
We're talking about what Trump did, but you
what did he do?
Said that didn't happen either. So
no, he didn't. No, they were guilty of what they did. Those are facts. I mean, I can send you the link. You can watch the entire footage of each video in their interrogation of these men. In fact, there's another podcaster. His name is it's called Consider Culture. It's called Consider Culture. I would encourage your viewers to check it out. It says the Central Park 5 were exonerated and found not guilty. They were wrongfully convicted. Based on what? How were they wrongfully convicted? You want to comment on anything so far what you heard?
Yeah, well, she obviously is pretty upset. She does not look happy there. But the thing about the exoneration is that they weren't exonerated, first of all, at all. That word was that comes from an interview that they did with
Oprah, I believe.
Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
Correct. Oprah said, so we should just call you the exonerated five from now on, and it stuck.
Right.
But if you know the legalities behind the case, if you've gone over the case files, you'll know that the case was vacated. Okay, and so there's a difference between a case being vacated and somebody being exonerated. So what happens with a vacated case is, if there is new evidence that is brought about a case, that means that the trial, the what do you call it? What they found,
Conviction.
if they're found guilty,
Yeah.
that's no longer on the table. Like they wipe the
Right.
whole trial out, like they erase it like it never happened.
Right.
Now, normally what happens when a case is vacated is, if the people have not done any time, they go back and they retry the case and bring in the new evidence. Because these boys had already done time, there was no need to do another case, another trial. That would be a waste of taxpayers' money, because they had already served their full sentences. So whether they were innocent or guilty, they had already served the time. And so they didn't bother with a second trial, or we would say what there would be a third and fourth trial, because there were
Right.
two separate trials. But
Correct.
that's the reason why that name is not accurate.
Correct. And it was basically, like you mentioned, Oprah had imposed that name upon those boys. That was not given to them by the courts. They were not exonerated. In other words, they were not found as not being guilty of a crime that they never committed. But they
Correct.
were the convictions were vacated because of
Right.
new
And
evidence.
right. And there are several people who have written on this after the fact, who, people in law who have written
Yes.
about this extensively, and what that means. But it doesn't matter. The media takes things and they run with it, and that's what the prevailing notions from everyone is going to be, because they based what they know based on the media, especially the Netflix series, which is what
Right.
most people know the case for.
And if you remember, in this interview on this particular, I believe on this particular podcast, or maybe I think her second or third one, where she had mentioned, or her viewers had mentioned, they used the movie as evidence to prove that these boys were innocent. And when I saw the comments saying, well, we watched the movie, we saw the movie, I'm like, y'all, you're being strong and wrong about a movie. You think the movie is evidence?
Right. Most movies and films based on true stories are
Yes.
changed tremendously so that they work for audiences. They make them a little bit more dramatic, things like that. I'm like
Right.
there's lots of scenes in that series that we could point at, like the fact that I think it was Corey Wise gets jumped by like a whole bunch of white
Yes.
supremacists at Rikers Island. Like, come on,
Right.
you really think that happened? It's
Right.
like,
And
Rikers
also remember the which one was the boy that got hit in the movie, got hit with the helmet
Kevin
by the cop?
Richardson.
Kevin,
Kevin,
right.
yeah.
Kevin, right? So Kevin Richardson. So notice in the actual interrogation, we know where the scratch under the eye came from. It didn't come from a
Right.
helmet, a cop's helmet. It came from Patricia Miley.
Right. And so that's another example where they just kind of embellished and just tried for dramatic effect. Like the police didn't hit him with you can see his face on the police photos. He doesn't, you can't even, it's not even detectable that he has that scratch that he has, even if you
Right.
watch the police video. So that scratch had to be small. And if you look at the Netflix photo, the mugshot in the Netflix series, it's like his eyes like this.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not on screen, but it's like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
huge, he got a huge black eye. So,
Mhm.
it's all for dramatic effect. And,
Right. And to what Ava Duvernay said, it was biased and slanted.
yeah. And she says that's not the only time that she's come out and said, I wanted to change the narrative. I mean, she said that out of her own mouth, as people, and all the people who weren't here at the beginning. He played a clip of Ava Duvernay herself saying on a panel, she was asked, can you be how do you feel to be someone who had all this power and make this film?
Right.
How do you stay true to the actual things that happened? She said, "Oh, this isn't true. This is completely biased and slanted." Those were her exact words. This is completely biased and slanted. So she knew what she was doing when she created that film.
Exactly.
And rightfully so. She actually had to. Netflix got a lawsuit behind it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's continue on. Let's let the rest of this play out here and get your comments. And feel free, She, to interject anything you may hear in this section here.
Okay.
They admitted that they committed the crime. Matter of fact, their DNA was on the jogger. So how were they wrongfully convicted?
So people have been coerced to.
Go ahead.
So so their DNA wasn't actually found on her. They did find, one of the interesting things about this case is she was laying in a pool of water, unconscious, in a coma, basically, for I think 4 hours, if I'm not mistaken. And when the paramedics came and found her, well, they didn't find her, but when they came to her to retrieve her and take care of her, they said that she was thrashing around in the water and rolling around like this. She had nervous reaction from being beaten in the head.
Yeah.
So a lot of what was on her would have been washed off by all the water that she was wading around in at that time. So the DNA evidence that they did find was on a sock that was separate from her person and then within her cervix. So those are the only two samples that were readable. The rest of the blood and semen was actually on the clothing of 3 of the boys. So just to clarify that.
Correct. So just to be clear, 3 of the 5 boys, their DNA and also physical evidence were on the jogger and also on them. Is that correct?
Right. So so to clarify, when you played the evidence clip, but back then DNA evidence was not what it is today at all. It was brand new. Like it had only been in New York City. This is like I think the last year before it, 1988. I think it started in 87 in New York City.
Yep.
So we're talking about 1989, and the trial went into 1990 and 1991.
Yep.
So if you understand that, you understand that they could not get to get a DNA sample. It has to be enough. Back in that time, it had to be enough. And so a lot of this was like little smears of blood on their clothing, a smear of semen on their clothing. And so they have to cut that out and extract it from the clothing. And that is a process. And so if you look at some of the documents that, the court has available to you, the documents basically say, okay, there's not enough. It's a trace amount so that they're not able to get a read on who the blood belongs to or who the semen belongs to. But the fact that they had blood on themselves, 3 of them had it, some of them in their underwear, and they had soil samples that were put them at that area of the park. The soil matched that section of the park as well. So there's a lot of things, and grass stains. Yeah. So
a lot. Yeah. I was going to also add before we continue on, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't one of the parents or the father or one of the parents, the boys' parents, told them to put their clothes back on that they had went to the park in to go back to the station to be interviewed?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was Antron's father, and I'm not sure why. I can't recall why he did that.
Yeah, that was weird to me, but yeah, that was very telling just for that to be even mentioned in court. And we're going to read some of the statements of this assistant district attorney Elizabeth Lederer on trial later in the live stream, but I wanted you all to get a pretty much of an overview and somewhat of what we're discussing regarding the Central Park 5 and these boys that were guilty for and we're going to say grape and also sodomy of Patricia Miley, either through their active involvement or inactive involvement by allowing her to be victimized by other people, and they were just standing there. So let's continue on.
say that they did something that they didn't actually do. So I think that's where this question is going. So people, and see, in this case, if I remember correctly, they were young kids. And what it was being stated is they were forced. I mean, you can force a child, or you can force anybody to say something that I did it, but they really didn't do it. So what I remember from the Central Park Five is they may have admitted it, but they never did it. And it was a forced confession. But
based on what? I had to stop it myself. Go ahead, she. Go ahead. I know you gonna. I know you. If you don't say something, I'm gonna say something. But go ahead, bro. Please.
Yeah. So we have video of the confessions. There's no forcing of the confessions anywhere in the video. I mean, people will put clips online and speculate as to, oh, you know, you hear that kind of stuff in the background, and people, that's some kids getting beat in the background. That's what's the sound you're hearing. But here's the thing. I don't know about any of your listeners, but see, I was in the theater as a child. I learned how to deliver lines, right? If you're talking about feeding kids lines and they only had a few hours in the precinct, how did they tell all these kids the same story with all those details and have them all memorize the story to repeat it on camera without any type of paper, without any kind of anybody prompting them? There's no prompts in those videos. I was in theater and it took me months to learn lines, sometimes weeks of training and repeating this stuff. These kids, you're trying to tell me 30 kids, and it was like 30, I think they interviewed 37 kids.
Yeah.
All of them remembered a similar story. It doesn't even make sense. I mean, that idea does not make sense. It doesn't hold water. I don't know how people can believe that that is correct.
Right.
After what, I mean, there's people who say, "Oh yeah, I watched the videos, and this is what I could see that they were being coerced." Where?
Right.
Where?
Right.
At what point?
With their parents present, dude. The parents. I mean, the cameraman is panning the interrogation room, and you see the parents to the right of the individual. So anyway, all right, let's continue. Do you know where that information? Who said that they were forced? Who said they were forced? Is there any documentation of that?
Yeah, they were found not guilty, and they were. I know you.
That's not what I'm asking. I was asking based on what information are y'all saying that they were forced and they were coerced to confess to a crime that they did not commit? I'm not saying that it cannot happen. I'm saying, but in this situation,
you say based on when you say you say based on what information?
Based on what evidence? Yeah, based on what evidence are you saying that they were coerced?
Evidence is they found that they were coerced and that they were forced.
Okay,
now, when you say based.
Yep, sure will. Go ahead.
Okay,
sir.
so they were never found to have been coerced. If you look at the trial after Matias Reyes came forward, it says in all the paperwork that they were never coerced. They said there was no wrongdoing on the police's part, right? So that is in the second trial that supposedly exonerates them, right? Or the vacated paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
The vacated paperwork basically says that there is no wrongdoing on the police end. So that would mean that they were not coerced. There's never been any evidence that the only reason that they got the $41 million in this settlement is because Matias Reyes said that he was the only one who did it, and they found his DNA on that sock. That's the only reason. But if they had have taken it back to court, I'm pretty certain that they still would have served time.
Yeah.
The other thing is that people don't talk about is there were 6 other victims. It wasn't just Patricia Miley.
That's right.
They attacked several people in that park.
Sure did.
And they all told the same story in the same order of how those people got beaten. The stories matched with the people who actually were the victims that night.
Right.
And that nobody knows about those victims because they didn't show up in the Netflix series.
Right. Exactly. I mean, you had the couple on the tandem bike that got beat. You have John.
Well, they didn't catch the guys on the couple on the tandem bike. They didn't actually get caught.
That's right. They
were able to escape. That's the only other woman who was they tried to attack. Right.
But what about the one they had called a bum?
Yeah, so that was Antonio Diaz. So that's the first one that they caught. in the park, and
Right. Took his
he
food
was
and threw it away because they didn't want it after they
yeah, apparently he had beer and stuff. They took his
Right.
beer. They were drinking his beer. They tried to. He had Chinese food. They were eating his rice, and then they didn't like the rice, so they threw it away. But they beat him up pretty good.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
was the first one.
Yeah, all of this is not found on how they see us or when they see whatever she called that crap. But nonetheless, let's go.
On what evidence? Apparently, the evidence that they had in the file when they went and re-looked at the case.
What file? What file? I don't know if you remember. And when she kept saying, I'm like, what file are you talking about? I kept asking her, what evidence do you have? Right? And this is what they do. Evidence file. Like, come on.
A lot of people, they'll just kind of make stuff up as they go on, as if they know what they're talking about. But I don't know what the file she's talking about. I mean, obviously there's a lot of case files. I think, what is there, 4,000 papers on that website? If they even have a dedicated website for all the court records. It's like there's so many of them, and you can spend. I mean, I spent 4 months and I didn't get through all of them, so I still go through them, periodically from time to time to look at stuff that's on there, because it's all interesting to me.
Yeah, and even in preparation for this video, man, for this live, man, I was like, man, I got to stop, because I mean, like you said, there's so much to read and transcripts of everything regarding this case, and you would never, you not even scratch the surface of this stuff. It's so extensive of information.
Yeah, it's a lot, and there was a photo one of the filmmakers for the Netflix series had. I think she was one that kind of rewrote the screenplay, and she was like, yeah, I did all this research, and I actually saw like Unequal Verdicts, the book, in that case. So I mean, in that she had like a bin, one of those Rubbermaid bins, and it was full of all the files that she said she used for the actual. That was right when they were getting sued. She was like, yeah, I did do my research, and she pulled out that thing and put a picture of it on X. So
wow. All right, well, let's continue on.
Those men are not guilty. They overturn that. So when you say that, I don't know, it seems like if we're gonna have a conversation like this, you got to bring your paperwork and show me, because what I remember is that so one of the guys lived in my area, a very nice young man. I can't remember his name, but he lived in my area, and I support them. So
that's fine. I would again, if you want to have the conversation, I can refer you to the website and to the individual who actually prosecuted the
so the guy that I'm talking about,
and what I meant to say was the individual that arrested him, not prosecuted, because that would be but the typo.
Cannot remember his name. I can't remember his name, but his daughter went to school with my daughter. So in terms of when I say the information I have, it's information that I got offline. So I don't care.
Offline?
I mean, didn't you just say online? Did you?
Yeah, I'm saying, I guess maybe because I know when you was doing this on the fly, so maybe we can probably get this information, and that way we can present it. Because I want people to be informed. I'm not trying to gaslight anybody.
I'm not saying that they did not say that they did it, but what I remember happening is they said that they were forced to say it.
Eric Reynolds, who's a black man, was the prosecutor. He tried all 5 of the boys. Not the prosecutor, ladies and gentlemen. I meant to say the detective. Let's continue. Matter of fact, they didn't catch everybody that was wilding out in Central Park, but the ones that they did catch admitted that they were the ones that had committed the crime and had assaulted the jogger. Now, if you're saying that these boys were coerced, I'm just asking based on what documented evidence do we have? Because this document that I shared with you in your DM, this is them in their own words on video.
Right. You're talking about when they were kids. I'm not saying that they didn't say they did it, but what I am saying is I know him. Well, not know him like know him, but
I got you.
They were exonerated. You see what I'm saying? So
I understand. Do you want to share with the audience about the individual you had spoke with, or in response to this person that she said that she spoke to that said that they didn't do it?
Yeah, I don't know who she's even referring to. She's just kind of like saying, I know somebody. So who knows who that could be? But most people say that they didn't do it. I went to there was a law school event at a HBCU here locally, and I went to that, and there was a guy there who was like a part of their civil law team, and I went in there with paperwork, and the thing was, it was a viewing of When They See Us. They were like, all these at a law school, this is what they're doing. They're watching When They See Us.
Wow.
And so I went there, and I was like the only dissenting voice, and they did not like that. They did not like that. But I've spoken to, Eric Reynolds, the officer, the arresting officer. I actually spoke to one of the boys, that one of the 30 kids who was there. He was actually one of the 10 who got locked up. See, a lot of people
Say
don't
that
know
again,
that.
Sheik, because maybe somebody may have gotten some popcorn, went to the bathroom, and got something to drink before you. Say that again. You spoke to one of the 30 that was involved in the wilding and assaulting of the joggers at Central Park.
That's correct. So I won't say the name of that individual, but this is after I made the little documentary that I made. So they actually saw it, and then they called me. Well, they hit me on Facebook and said, "Hey, I saw your documentary. Everything on it is correct, except," he said that, except for the rape. He said he didn't feel like they did the rape. So be it. But we and him had a conversation. I found that he was not as honest as he was trying to. I think he was trying to lead me away from the case at the time, and stop pursuing it, stop pushing out the video, that sort of thing.
But he was one of the 30 of the individuals that were wild.
He was one of the 30 individuals. He was one of the 10 that actually went to prison. So a lot of people don't know there was another 5 boys who actually went to prison for the other victims. So there were 7 victims in total, and so they robbed these people and beat these people. So 10 of them went to prison, but 2 of them copped a plea deal, which is Stephen Lopez, and the other one was I think it was Jermaine Robinson. So those 2 did a plea deal, and there's 3 others that I can't really recall what their legal situation was, but they did like a year or 2, and that was it.
Gotcha. All right, almost done with this part of. Let's continue on.
We're going. That's just like, okay, let's say I got it. As a kid, this didn't really happen, but let's say 14 years old, I get arrested by the police, and I don't really know what to say, and they scaring the shit out of me. So I'm gonna say, yeah, I did it. So maybe I didn't do it. So what I recall is it was something like that. But I think we're going back to say, oh, they said they did it. I don't believe there is,
let's stop. So this idea that I don't know who in their right mind believes that you can tell police that you were involved with a rape, and because
all
you
5,
told
by the way,
that you're
all
involved,
all 5 with their parents that were allowed to be there.
Their parents and themselves would believe that they could tell this story and not do not get any kind of reprimand, not even a slap on the back of the wrist from the police. I mean, you had to know you were going to prison or going to jail after you tell the story, especially if you feel like, oh, I'm black and I had the victim mentality, as they do. Why would you think that if you tell a story about raping a white woman that you're not going to jail? Like, who really believes that is a real thing that can happen? Like, I could tell this story that I beat this woman with a pipe. Somebody had ripped her clothes off with a knife. We dragged her into the woods, and even though I didn't penetrate her, I was involved. I'm not going to jail because I told the story.
Give me some points for participation. I mean, at least I told you. At least I told the truth. Okay,
right. It's not logical, and the fact that so many black folks are believing that is a logical reason for them to tell this story doesn't make sense. Now, in terms of the coercion story, there's 2 camps with this. People either believe that they were fed all of the story, but they don't say that themselves. So for them, on their part, they've never said that. When they do talk about coercion, they never say that the police fed them the story. What they say is the police fed us names of other individuals who were there, and told us to make up a story. Okay, if that's the case, and that's what they've said, that's not you can't alter what they've said. They have said out of their own mouths
Right.
that we were fed names and we just were told to put them in a story. Okay, so they snitched on each other. They were told to snitch and they did so. Okay, but how did they all come up with the same story?
Right.
If they weren't told a story, how did they all come up with the same story? And you can see this on the documentary. That's on the Burns documentary. They say it out of there. Raymond Santana says it explicitly. They didn't tell me what to say, but they told me to make up a story. I think Antron says it as well. Some interview he says it. So how do you come to the conclusion that they were coerced from that? It just does not make sense to me. Right. I mean, if you're a logical person and arguing with me, the person who's done this documentary, your best argument is that, okay, they beat everybody else up, but they didn't do the rape. I'm okay with people who come to me with that because, there's not a lot of evidence that they actually raped her. There is a good deal, in my opinion, I think, that they were involved in it.
Right. There would be good deal of just the involvement of it.
Right. But if you come to me and you say they didn't do anything that night,
right,
like they're starting to say themselves now,
right,
I just can't take you seriously. It's
exactly.
not worth talking about.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You've already been out. You're already out to lunch. So, all right, let's continue on.
Saying that they didn't say they did it, but what I'm saying is they were exonerated, which means they were cleared of that. Like, so us to go back and say they said they did it, we know they said that they did it. They were convicted of it. But does that matter now that they have looked at the evidence and they have actually, made the determination that they didn't really do it? So I don't know if that really makes sense to look at what they said. They never said that they didn't say that. But what they said is that they did it because, they were forced.
And
when you say this, said something about their parents being there. I don't know if that changes things. The parents may feel like, listen, just say you did it. I want you to get out of jail. I don't know if
I had to stop there for a second. What parent in their right mind but I mean, you facing prison time. You're not talking about reform school here. You going to jail, bro. What parent in their right mind would just say you did it? Just say you did it so you can get out of here. What?
Right.
But this woman has over 100-some thousand subscribers, man. And she's feeding this narrative to people and they're soaking it up and eating it up. And you saw it in the comments.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have already decided what their decision was going to be long before she came and started spouting her stuff, but she's not giving any evidence. All she's doing is repeating the same thing. They were exonerated. They were exonerated. They were exonerated. I mean, if you repeat the same thing over and over again, people start to believe it. And unfortunately, that's the thing that we've heard over and over again about them, is that they were exonerated. Nobody's going to take the time to read through 4,000 pages worth of court files.
No.
You got to be crazy like me or you to even sit there and spend time doing it. So it's like, right. But once you do, you realize, it's not what happened.
Right. At all. Let's wrap it up.
That changes the facts because they were exonerated, is what I'm saying.
So I can't speak on the motive and I can't speak on the what ifs. All I'm saying is based on the facts, based on court documents, based on sworn testimony, and based on the DNA evidence at that time, these 5 boys committed that crime. Now
they didn't even have DNA back then, so
they did have DNA. It wasn't as advanced. It wasn't as advanced as they have it today, but they did have DNA. Yes, they did. It was just not as advanced.
Okay, well, they definitely was at, look, I don't care one way or the other, but they definitely they were exonerated.
She kept saying it as though that makes it true. Then she says, I don't care. Well, we can tell that. I mean, the jury been back on fact that whether or not you cared of the facts, you didn't care. And it showed in her even bringing those, those situations and those different examples up. What I want to do now, I want to kind of like change course a little bit. Still talk about the case, but I want to share with the audience the transcript, I believe you and I had talked about earlier. So I'll give people the idea of actually what was said in the courtroom, and this particular case between Antron McCray, Yusef Salam, and also Raymond Santana. You said there were two separate cases because it was the five boys that they were trying during that time, and so
Right.
Elizabeth Lederer, she's an assistant district attorney there in New York. And so I wanted to start at page 29. And ladies and gentlemen, this link is in the description description below. In this video, you can check it out yourself at your leisure. But I want to read this, and we're going to cover some of this, spending most of our time covering some of the documentation here of this transcript. This is page 27, and it says here, this is the summation of the case. And this, again, is assistant district attorney Liz Lederer. She says, think about the injuries that were inflicted on Patricia Miley. Dr. Kurtz testified about the injuries to her head. The life-threatening injuries she suffered were the blows to her head, and that's where she was bleeding from. These defendants didn't come in contact with her head. They were raping and sodomizing her. They were not on top of her head. They were on top of her pelvic area and on top of her torso. They were touching her breasts. She wasn't bleeding from her breasts. There's no reason why these defendants before Patricia Miley had been lying there and bleeding for several hours would have blood on their clothes. And Kevin Richardson, who every defendant says raped, and I'm just going to read it how it's transcribed, objection, overruled. Every single defendant, Antron McCray, Yusef Salam, and Raymond Santana all indicated Kevin Richardson had intercourse with the female jogger that night. Kevin Richardson didn't have any blood on his clothes and didn't have any mud on his clothes. He had her pubic hair and head hair. Here's a person everybody says raped her. There is no blood on his clothes and no mud on his clothes. And there would be no reason somebody who was involved in that attack would have blood on their clothes. Another thing for you to consider, you remember hearing testimony about the shirt that Patricia Miley was wearing. And you recall when she testified here, she said that there were certain holes in the shirt. And she pointed out these holes. They were not the result of anything the serologist had done. And holes that she said were not there when she wore the shirt on April 19th, 1989. I submit to you that the hole or holes came to be there at some point when her shirt was being ripped off of her and when it was over her head and her head was turned to the side, and whether it was with this rock or whether it was with a brick or whether it was with a stick, that shirt was over her head at least for one or more of the blows that were inflicted. And with that shirt in the way, there is no blood that would get on the defendants as she had her face covered and her head covered as they were beating her. And most importantly, when Antron McCray is interviewed on the videotape and he asked, Antron, did you get blood on your clothes? He says no. And he knew he didn't get blood on his clothes that night. And he knew before any serology lab, any police department lab had done any serology testing or had gotten results to anybody who was investigating this case. And McCray tells you himself that he didn't get blood on his clothes. He didn't get blood on his clothes, and neither did anybody else who was there. Patricia Miley was taken into the woods. Yusef Salam described to Detective McKenna that she was taken off the road, dragged into the woods, and he described how Corey grabbed her shirt. He said he was feeling her breast while the shirt was on, and then Corey then pulled up the shirt and pulled it off, and he started to fill her up. Raymond Santana described to Detective Sheehan and on the videotape interview how Steve Lopez pinned her arms with his knees. He covered her mouth with his hand, and because she was still screaming, he started smacking her. He was covering her mouth, but every time she was talking, he was smacking her, saying, "Shut up, B." He kept smacking her, and did she keep screaming? And he kept on smacking her. Did someone stuff anything in her mouth? No. He picked up the brick and he hit her with the brick twice. Where did he hit her with the brick? Around her face, around here, somewhere up here. After he hit her in the head with the brick, did she stop screaming? Yeah, because she was like shocked. When you say she was like shocked, what did you see? She just stood there. She didn't do nothing. Did she stop moving? Uh-huh. She just stood there, you know. When you say that she just stood there, was she lying down or standing up? Lying down. After he hit her in the head with the brick, did you see if her eyes were open? No, I didn't see. I didn't see it. What was Kevin doing while Steve Lopez was holding her hand and hitting her with the brick? He was having sex with her. What did you see him doing? Was he on top of her? Uh-huh. You have to answer out loud and say yes or no. Yes. And did you see whether his pants were on? They were off. They were pulled down past his knees. Antron McCray also describes the attack on Patricia Miley. He described how he and the others kicked her and hit her. She was hit in the ribs with a pipe. She was hurt. She was just lying there. And then we all took turns getting on top of her. I had her left arm holding it over her head while she tried to pull free. The Puerto Rican kid with the black hood, he had her other arm, and one after the other, we got on top of her. First one guy, then the Puerto Rican with the black hood, then I did, then Clarence Thomas, and then Kevin Richardson. The actual attack on Patricia Miley, the actions that these defendants and the others did to her didn't take long. It took 10, maybe 20 minutes. And it happened after the attack on Jerry Malone and Patricia Dean. And do any of those names ring a bell or familiar to you, G?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately, a lot of it. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. When Jerry Malone and Patricia Dean testified, they put themselves at the time, they set the time that they believed the attempted attack on them happened as approximately 9:10 or 9:15. You know that Patricia Miley left her building at blank very soon after 9 o'clock, and she ran across all the avenues into the park and then ran north on East Drive and into Cross Drive. There is not the remotest possible chance that this crime happened after 10 o'clock. You know that Patricia Miley had to be back at her apartment at 10 o'clock. She had plans to meet someone there, and when she left at 9 o'clock to go running, she was running so that she would be done and finished and home in time to meet this person. Imagine what this attack on Patricia Miley was like. Imagine the frenzy of these teenagers as they were gathering around her, as they were waiting to take their turn, as each was trying to do something somehow. They were reaching in hands to grab her. They were ripping off her clothes. People were kicking her. They were beating her. There were so many people there. And the chaos of what was going on, if you can imagine the scene first behind the tree that was marked as H1, I believe it says, and then further down below, the rush not to get caught, the rush to participate, to somehow be involved. Are you surprised then that the defendants, when they're interviewed, don't remember the exact details and they don't know exactly where her bra was when they were feeling her breasts? They don't know exactly where her shirt was. They can't describe exactly what she was wearing. What do you think their attention was focused on? It wasn't on where the clothing went or where she had been wearing. It was in the activity and the wildness of what was going on. It was focusing on what they could do and what others were doing nearby. Antron McCray is asked in the videotape, quote, "And when her clothes were taken off, did she still have her shoes on?" Antron McCray answered, and I submit honestly, quote, "I wasn't paying attention. I don't know," end quote. And I submit to you that where the defendants are vague and don't know answers about the details of what was happening, the reason they don't know is because that is not what they were focusing on. I submit to you several people in that group raped and sodomized Patricia Miley, and that there were people who actually penetrated her. And this is the part I wanted to read in page 35. There were people who actually penetrated her, people who actually sodomized her, and there were other people who were aiding those people. Evidence proves beyond a reasonable doubt that Patricia Miley was was R, and I'm just gonna have to start saying R because I don't want you to trip. And she was sodomized. Look at the evidence that proves that she was blank, and look at what evidence is that proves that she was sodomized on that night. To begin with, she was found naked in the woods. No man who was attacked in the park on that night was stripped. The fact that a woman is found naked in the park begins to lead you to the opinion that she was sexually molested and sexually assaulted. But consider the other evidence that you heard that proved that she was in fact blanked. Remember the testimony that you heard from Tom Bello. Tom Bello was a nurse at Metropolitan Hospital. This is going to be even more disturbing as y'all listen to this and read along. And he saw Patricia Miley when she first was brought in. And he described how it was his assignment, among other things, to put a catheter in her. And you will remember he described when he examined her and cleaned her and put in the catheter, he described that there was dirt, twigs, and a broken twig inside the labia, inside the lips of the vagina. And he also described that she had a cut just a few inches below the entrance to the vagina. You will remember that Dr. Adams testified in that he said that the cut was consistent with that you might expect to be caused by a zipper. Look at the exhibits, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that cut. How do you think that came to be there? It was in the course of a blank and a sexual assault, but it doesn't stop at that. Think about the other evidence that you heard. You heard testimony from Dr. Thompson, who with Tom Bello performed a pelvic examination on the patient. And they prepared certain samples and slides that were sent to the New York City Police Department laboratory for analysis, and certain other samples that were sent to the FBI for analysis. You heard Dr. Thompson testify that the examination of this patient was different than the examination she had done in other blank cases. It was not done as soon as the patient was brought into the hospital. Patricia Miley injuries were so severe that they could not take the time to do a blank kit until several hours after she was brought in. The samples that were gathered were not taken until 6:15 in the morning of the 20th. The assault happened at about 9:30 p.m. on the day before. They were not able to use equipment that they normally use in performing that kind of an examination. They could not use stirrups. She was unconscious. They were performing the most immediate and most necessary treatments on her. Dr. Thompson said that she could get no information from the patient because she was unconscious. And you will remember that Dr. Thompson said she did the examination of Patricia Miley while they were waiting for Patricia Miley to have a CAT scan. The lighting condition where she did this exam required that she have to use a flashlight to help her. Bear those factors in mind when you consider the evidence that was gathered. Had the test been done sooner, had the test been done under better conditions, perhaps more evidence would have been gathered. Perhaps a better quality sample was taken. But consider what was taken, what evidence was gathered. Dr. Thompson and Tom Bello described 2 vaginal swabs were taken and 2 rectal swabs were taken. From those swabs, slides were prepared. A slide is made with a cervical or a vaginal swab, and a slide is made from the rectal swab. Mary Veit examined those slides at the laboratory. There was sperm in the vagina. There was sperm in the rectum. The swabs that were received were sent to the FBI for testing. Another set of swabs, another vaginal swab, and a rectal swab were kept by the hospital. We recall evidence those swabs were tested, and they were found to be high in acid phosphatase. Mary Veit explained to you that this is an enzyme that is very high elevated level in semen and sperm. Slides were made and kept at the hospital. One was vaginal slide, one was a rectal slide. And Mary Veit later examined those and found that they were also positive for the presence of sperm in the rectum and in the vagina. I submit to you that is proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Patricia Miley was blanked and sodomized. But on top of that, as you also have the testimony from Special Agent Dwight Adams. Mr. Adams told you that he received a vaginal swab and a rectal swab from the New York City Police Department, and he analyzed that. He was able to obtain a faint profile from the vaginal swab, and he said that that swab produced a profile that did not match the defendants in this case. It did not match any of the suspects. It did not match Kevin O'Reilly. It did not match Kevin O'Reilly. The semen that was inside Patricia Miley came from someone else. As we had mentioned earlier, that you was talking about earlier before, that it wasn't from these individuals. It was from someone else. But nonetheless, you'll find later in this transcript that they participated in the essay of Patricia Miley.
Right. And it's important to note that if you listen to their testimonies, they say that they didn't penetrate her, so you wouldn't anticipate finding any semen samples in her cervix from any of the Central Park Five, and that's what people don't get. They think, oh, because there's no DNA evidence that proves that they weren't a part of it, and then people are like, well, what about Matias Reyes? And you definitely have to get on that, and I'll let you take us there when you want to, but
sure.
There's certainly reasons and explanations for all of this, why Reyes would say he's the only person, and for why there's no, obviously the semen, the reason that there's no DNA evidence found from the boys inside of Patricia Miley, you can get it from their testimonies themselves. They said they couldn't get erect. They just simulated sex with her so they could seem cool. They did not. They couldn't perform under those conditions, and what most men couldn't. I mean, the only one who we knew was a bona fide, real psychopathic rapist. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to say that.
Yeah, you're good.
What was Matias Reyes? I mean, he was that. So the other guys were just petty criminals, you know. They were they beat people up and robbed people. That's what they did, but they weren't, this was something new for them. And so they couldn't perform.
Exactly. Now we're going to read a few more pages, ladies and gentlemen, but I hope y'all can bear with me, because I want y'all to see that how serious this crime was and how this should not have been minimized into what Cedar Abraham said in the chat. He says, quote, has me thinking how the true victim of the violence feels about them being freed. I mean, this is a miscarriage of justice of the highest order, in my opinion, because these individuals got off thinking that, well, we didn't do anything, and then they got paid, $8 million a piece, almost $8.5 million a piece.
I will say this, that I have to make this clear in my videos that they did their time, so justice was in part.
That's true.
Justice did prevail.
That's true.
However, the aftermath and what people think about it and what they've been awarded and where they've been elevated is not justice.
That is correct.
It's kind of a reversal of the justice that was done. So
yeah. So I want to read page 40 of this, and this is somewhat interesting. What the ADA Assistant District Attorney says. She says here. She says, I'm looking at line 5, page 40. She says the semen that was inside Patricia Miley came from someone else, and the fact that it did not come from Antron McCrae or Yusef Salam or Raymond Santana does not establish that these three defendants did not blank her. It does not establish that they did not aid others to rape her. I'm going to say that blank, but anyway. The only thing that proves is that it is that these three defendants, none of these three defendants ejaculated inside of her. And it says ejaculation is not an element of blank. There is no legal requirement that ejaculation occur for the crime of blank to be committed or for the crime of sodomy to be committed. The testimony from Dwight Adams is absolutely consistent with what the people contend happened in this case. The DNA profile that was recovered doesn't match the people on trial in this case. But think about what Antron McCrae told you. Antron McCrae described that before he blanked her and before he got on top of her, first, there was a black guy that got on top of her, then the Puerto Rican guy with the black hood, then I did it, then Clarence, and then Kevin. Perhaps the DNA profile would match the first person that he described as getting on top of her, the black guy. Perhaps the DNA profile would match the first person that he described as getting up top of her, the black guy. Perhaps the DNA profile would match the second guy, the Puerto Rican guy with the black hoodie. Without knowing the name of the identity of those people, there is no way to get a sample. There's no way to do a comparison. Think about what Yusef Salam said. You will recall that Yusef Salam said to Detective McKenna that Kevin got on top of her, and in his words, Kevin effed her. Then Corey did, and then a couple of other guys, but he didn't know them. Maybe if he did know them, maybe if their names were known, maybe it would be possible to get a blood sample from them and get a DNA profile, and maybe then you would know if it matched one of them. The fact that we don't know who they are, the fact that their names were not given by the defendants, makes it impossible to do those tests. Dwight Adams also told you that the semen that was found inside of her was consistent with the pattern that was found on a sock that was found near the site of the blood. You will recall the sock is shown in these photographs in 94 and in 95 as being near the large areas of blood. That's further proof that the semen, that semen inside of her, that pattern, she was blanked in the woods, she was blanked in that location, and that is where the semen is found on the sock. That's where the sock was left, and that's where she was left, bleeding after they were done with her. You'll recall the testimony from Detective Gonzalez, who was present during the interview of Antron McCray. And Detective Gonzalez told you that Antron McCray had said to him that when he got on top of Patricia Miley, he got on the female jogger, he penetrated her, and he entered her. And Detective Hilbrand asked, did you have a hard-on? Did you have a hard-on? Did you come? And Antron McCray said he did not ejaculate. He did not come. Let me stop there for a second. What are your thoughts about that testimony there, or this statement here?
I mean, all of it is tough to listen to, but I think that she's just kind of making the case that these kids, they were involved in this, but there's no reason for you to think that you would find DNA evidence. You're trying to explain why the DNA evidence wasn't there. Yeah, and it makes sense, Yeah. I think that if you listen to their testimony, it's pretty clear why the DNA evidence is not there.
Correct. Let me read a little bit more. It says, and on the videotape, when Antron McCray talks about his involvement in the blank, he says very quickly, all of a sudden, 4 times in a row, I didn't put it in her. I didn't put it in her. In her. I didn't put it in. I didn't put my penis in her. End quote. I submit to you that by the time he was doing the video statement, Antron McCray was trying to minimize his participation in the blank of Patricia Miley. I submit to you that he told Detective Gonzalez, as he told Detective Hildebrandt, Antron McCray did penetrate her and he did not ejaculate. If you think about it for a moment, when the detectives did the interview of Antron McCray at the 20th precinct on April 20th on that afternoon, they had no way of knowing whether there was semen inside of her. They had no way of knowing whether DNA testing would be done. They had no way of knowing whether, if DNA testing would be done, whether it would match Antron McCray or not. They had no information and no reason to make up a statement from him saying, I did penetrate her, but I did not ejaculate. I suggest to you that Antron McCray did penetrate her and he did not ejaculate. And the judge will instruct you on the law and the definition of the crime of blank. Penetration, however slight, of the penis into the vagina with other elements that the judge will charge you on is sufficient to find the commission of the crime of blank. As you consider the evidence, even if you decide, as Antron McCray later says in the video statement, that he didn't actually penetrate her, even if you find that he didn't, the evidence proves beyond a reasonable doubt that Antron McCray is guilty of blank. Antron McCray describes how he held Patricia Miley's arm down so that others could blank her. The judge will instruct you on the definition of accomplice liability. He will tell you what it means for people to be acting in concert. But if Antron McCray, with the intent that Patricia Miley be blanked, aided somebody else to commit that blank, he is criminally responsible and guilty of blank in the first degree. And that is true for any other defendant, where that defendant, if Yusef Salam or if Raymond Santana, with the intent that woman be blanked, aided or helped anybody else to blank her, he is criminally responsible for the crime of blank in the first degree. Think about Antron McCrae's videotape. Remember how he describes what he did to help the others to blank Patricia Miley. How he describes holding her arm over her head. How he was restraining her. How he was trying to pull her arms free. And one and then another got on top of her and penetrated her and blanked her. Yusuf Salam described to Detective McKenna his participation in the attempted murder and sexual assault of Patricia Miley. He denied blanking her. But I submit to you that his actions in striking her in the head with a pipe while Kevin was struggling with her and striking her again when she was on the ground and then helping to drag her into the woods and helping others to blank her makes him criminally responsible for the blank and sodomy that happened. He describes how he was filling her breast with a shirt and on how Corey took it off, and how he continued to fill her breast. And this is while Kevin was having intercourse with her and others were having intercourse. Yusuf Salam intentionally, actively, and purposefully helped Kevin Richardson and others to take her into the woods and to blank her. And I'll stop right there for that part. So anyway, there's other parts in this transcript, man. I was reading and I told you about how during this case, Corey Wise's mother, man, ladies and gentlemen, all I can tell you is when you read the transcript of Corey Wise's mother and how she was acting, you'll see how Corey Wise, the fruit does not fall from the proverbial tree at all, because they were two characters, man. I mean, to say the least, on this.
Yeah.
And in this particular transcript that I was reading here, I believe the judge even told one of the, I think one of the family members or whoever, they all had got up and just started to march out as a demonstration. He said, okay, y'all can't come back in here. I'm not putting up with that. And the defense was trying to ask the judge why. He said, because they're trying to demonstrate. I'm not tolerating that. I warned y'all before. I'm not taking any crap from anybody. We're going to have an orderly, trial. And if anybody can't comport themselves and respect the court, then you can't come back and you're out. And so, it was very telling to say the least, man. So, but I want to get your thoughts about this because again, I was reading this. I didn't have a chance to look at the comments, but if this is y'all's first time even hearing this, what does this do about what you saw in the quote unquote movie depiction of these five versus what you're actually reading court documented transcripts of what took place? And this is just the summation. I haven't even read to y'all the cross-examination of these boys from the district attorneys cross-examining them, because it is very disturbing and very telling. I'm telling y'all. But what are your thoughts, man? Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot of information. There's so much that is incriminating in the evidence that it's just interesting to me how far we've come from the 1980s in the early 90s to now to today. A lot of people don't know that in New York at the time there were candlelight vigils held by people who lived in the projects where these boys came from. So there were Black and Hispanic people who were in support of Patricia Miley. There was a lot of Black people who thought that these guys should be killed or put to death because of this thing. And at the time, what a lot of people also don't know, and this to this day, is that Black women by far the highest have the highest rates of blank victimization. And so and I guess we'll get to this down the line, but a lot of people use this case to kind of go at the President Trump because of his letter. But his letter basically mirrored what a lot of Black people themselves were thinking about this case at the time. And there's all types of clips and stuff of Black people who are putting on protests and things of that nature, or just being in support of Patricia Miley when she was in a coma. So
well, let's go to the article right here. I got it on the screen. You can see it right here. This is what and Donald Trump at the time, he was a private citizen. He was not even president then. This was in 89, 90, give or take. So he was a private citizen, and it's titled "Bring Back the Death Penalty, Bring Back Our Police." Now it's kind of small print. I can try to enlarge a little bit for those who may be They can't see it. Is any particular part of the article you want to read, or you want to read it in its
Um,
entirety? I'll let you go ahead.
I know that there's, if you talk about this, I mean, I don't want to draw everything out too long because I know we still have a lot to get to, but the one of the things he mentions is that the victims are Black, Hispanic, Asian. He's not sitting here saying, okay, white women are being attacked. At that time, again, the biggest victim group in New York City was not white women for this type of crime. It was Black women. So these things were seen in the news over and over of people being attacked by men, women being attacked by men. So people were tired of it. There's just that thought. You have to go back to that time in New York. The city was crazy. I mean, in the 80s in New York City, it was crazy times. And that's what this article reflects. That it's not directed. It's not really directed at these boys. Like if you start reading the article, it's not like laser focused on them. It's focused on crime in New York City in total. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people they don't take the time to read it. If you don't take the time to read it, then you're just thinking that he just took out this ad that says hang these boys, they need to go. But that's not at all what it says.
Right.
And
Let me read a section of it. Let's read it. Let me read a section of it. And I'm gonna start in the left side of the screen where it says many New York families, white, Black, Hispanic, and Asian, have had to give up the pleasure of a leisurely stroll in the park at dusk, the Saturday visit to the playground with their families, the bike ride at dawn, or just sitting on their stoops, giving them up as hostages to a world ruled by the law of the streets, as roving bands of wild criminals roam our neighborhoods, dispensing their own vicious brand of twisted hatred on whomever they encounter. Notice he ain't saying that about the five. He's speaking of anybody that's described as this type of behavior. He says, at what point did we cross the line from the fine and noble pursuit of genuine civil liberties to the reckless and dangerously permissive atmosphere which allows criminals of every age to beat and blank a helpless woman and then laugh at her family's anguish? And why do they laugh? They laugh because they know that soon, very soon, they'll be returned to the streets to blank and maim and kill once again, and yet face no real personal risk to themselves. Mayor Koch has stated that hate and rancor should be removed from our hearts. I do not think so. I want to hate these muggers and murderers. They should be forced to suffer, and when they kill, they should be executed for their crimes. They must serve as examples so that others will think long and hard before committing a crime or an act of violence. Yes, Mayor Koch, I want to hate these murderers, and I always will. I'm not looking to psychoanalyze or understand them. I am looking to punish them. If the punishment is strong, the attacks on innocent people will stop. He says, I recently watched a newscast trying to explain the anger in these young men. I no longer want to understand their anger. I want them to understand our anger. I want them to be afraid. How can our great society tolerate the continued brutalization of its citizens by crazed misfits? Criminals must be told that their civil liberties end when an attack on our safety begins. And I'll stop right there on that part.
Yeah, so I'll address somebody in the comments said I didn't know what I was talking about. You're wrong about the Black community.
I didn't see that.
There's news clips of Black people who were in support of Patricia Miley and one of these kids taken away. I could sit here and find the clips for you. You can go and find them yourself, but they exist.
Yeah.
And all of my family is from New York City. Trust me, there were a lot of black and brown people who were not down with this.
Yeah. So, and even with what we're talking about here, it kind of like, again, I just saw the comment right here. It's individuals such as this that, their knee-jerk response and emotional reaction is not based on facts. It's based on feeling.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah. The information is out there. Just people aren't going to want to read it. They just take the word of what's out there, the Netflix series. They most people, that's where they get their information from. It's not, they're not going to go and research the case. But
Yeah, he says, I was there in New York. The black community knew who Trump was talking about the five. He wasn't just talking about just the five. That's why I read
he
it. It was
talked about,
context.
yeah. Sorry to cut you
Go
off.
ahead. No,
But
go ahead. No.
he said explicitly, if you listen to him while he's reading it, that he wants the murderers. When people murder, I want them killed. He did not say when people do other crimes, I want them killed. There's no this idea that he wanted the Central Park Five lynched is debunked by just simply reading that thing that he wrote. He said explicitly, the people who murder, I want them dead.
Yep.
That's what he said. Go back and you can read it yourself. Go find it on the internet, but it is there.
It's right there. It sure can. And this is why we're talking. But critical thinking seems to be, man, it seems to be a pastime for the black community when it comes to context, when it comes to just reading things for what it says. I don't have to allegorize it. I don't have to read into it. What did the man say? What did he say? Let me go back to the screen again for the sake of repeating myself. Quote, at the bottom, he says, I do not think, he says, I want to hate these muggers and murderers. They should be forced to suffer, and notice, and when they kill, what does it say, she?
I want them to, I can't read it.
Okay, yeah, right here. He said they should be forced to suffer, muggers and murders, and when they kill, they should be executed for their crimes. In the
exactly.
Quote.
Right. So he's not talking about people who just beat people upside the head. Obviously, he wants them to be dealt with too, but he doesn't want murder for them.
Right. And I find it rather interesting. Again, and I know I'm a Christian, but Lex Talionis, is eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It's even if you are just a moral person, you want justice when injustice has been perpetrated upon you or upon other people. You want what it needs to be done to that individual that was intended to be done to you, to be done to that individual, so it can serve as a deterrent. You have specific deterrents, you have general deterrents. And so these people need to be served as examples. So Trump is right. And again, he wasn't even president, but it's interesting that these people try to pull up old articles and try to act like, and I'm glad he's still standing on business and say, hey, look, I haven't changed what I said. I'm not backing down what I said. I'm not gonna amend what I said. He didn't even agree with the ruling that the New York courts, and that was actually a civil case, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't criminal that they got this award. It was a civil case that they were awarded the 41.5 million to that effect.
Right. And to that point, like, you can talk about other civil versus criminal cases. I always like to talk about the O.J. Simpson case. O.J. Simpson, he was shown to be, or they say he was innocent on the criminal case,
right,
but he was made to pay in the civil case.
Sure did.
So if he what does that show you? I mean,
right.
If he had to pay money in the civil case, but in the criminal case, he was shown to be innocent. I mean, things could go either way in these things. So
let's talk about Matias Reyes, man. You put me on to a book, bro, that I knew nothing about. I'm actually reading it, and I also have that book in the video description, ladies and gentlemen. You can go to all the links below whenever you get a chance. But it's titled, I believe it's titled "Your Eyes or Your Life." Is that what it's called?
I think so. Yep. Your Eyes or Your Life.
And it was from Richard Siracusa, right? And explain to the audience, who is Richard Siracusa? So
Richard Siracusa was the attorney that represented Matias Reyes. So Matias Reyes had several court cases. He had blanked several women, attacked several women in New York City, and so he had to serve time for those crimes. And so this is the attorney who represented him. So he wrote this book, and it details some of those crimes, but it also goes into, in part, portions of the Central Park 5 case. Yeah. And would you recommend that book for the viewers to check out, sir? Absolutely. So it doesn't. If it, you know, if you're really into this case, of course, there's the court files on Central Park. Just I can't remember the. I'm sure you have it in the description, but
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
website that the New York City like put out all the
yeah.
files, and that's good. And the second thing is this book here. This is probably the best book in
Come on,
terms
man.
of this case.
Yeah,
The book you're talking about, Richard Syracuse's book, is basically it's about Matias Reyes, and it only gives
correct.
you a little bit about this case. It doesn't go into depth and detail, but what he does say is he basically kind of ties together how these two, how Matias Reyes fits into that group of guys that night, and that's his lawyer. His attorney does not believe Matias Reyes, so that's something to
Ain't that
note.
something? And that's telling when you
Yeah, yeah.
and I
So
believe in his forward, he said, he didn't know all of what had happened, and had he had known it, he would have definitely. It would have been hard for him to try to defend Matias Reyes as a client. And so after the fact, he said he believed that this was his way of giving back, and also his way of making clear of how wicked this man really was, and how much of a psychopath this man was. Because you mentioned about the attack on Patricia Miley. Yeah, he was able to perform the act because of his mental derangement, because of how
right.
depraved he was, rather. And so, and then him also committing other vile acts. I believe he unalived a pregnant woman in front of their children. I believe a 2-year-old or something to that effect.
I can't remember the exact. I can't remember exacts with his other crimes.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
believe
something
one
I
of
really
them was.
focused on, but I do know that he did murder some folks. So
Yeah, yeah. And so what are some I guess some thoughts regarding this whole thing, man? I mean, you had mentioned about how it took you, man, 4 months to compile. And I would probably even say you hadn't even reached the bottom of all of this stuff, but you put out you unearthed and exhumed a lot of information to where you would think your content, man, would have gotten more traction, especially when this situation was in his I guess in his heyday, regarding the documentary regarding Kim Burns and Ava Duvernay and others
hmm
that was trying to make these men to seem like they were just innocent, and they were just victims of wrongful persecution and incrimination.
yeah. So because I just have to explain how I got into this case. So basically, I've been putting out content on police shootings
Hmm.
of black people and for years, and I've been talking about black um, crime and things of that nature since 2006. So
Yeah.
friends of mine who are close to me, we came up together, and they're telling me, you're always taking the police side. You're always taking the police side. Do a case where the police were wrong, and that's what brought me to this case actually,
Mm.
because it was getting all this hype from the Netflix series, and
Hmm.
people were
Hmm.
like, yeah, these guys were were in they were the police basically did them wrong. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I went and I said, I got to research it so I can do a video on it. And then, my friend will stop giving me the business
Yeah,
about,
yeah, yeah.
being on the police side all the time. So then went and I watched this panel that they were on. It was a New York Times panel, and they said something. It was a lie that Kevin Richardson told. He basically said,
Mm.
we never used the word wild, and that's something that they made up. And I was like, what? You
Wow.
you on video saying the word, and
Right.
if you came up, I'm about their same age. I'm about I'll be 50 this year.
Mhm.
So and like I said earlier, all my parents are from New York City. I visited New York City all the time. Most of my friends are from New York City. So I
Mhm.
knew the vernacular and the words that were
Yeah.
being used in the street at that time.
Yeah.
These people were just like some of my friends. So when I heard him say that, I was like, this is nonsense. Like he's blatantly lying. And after that, I just went into the court case and looked at the files, and I just said, okay, there's something wrong here. And it just kind of spiraled from there, and it just became so interesting that I couldn't stop reading about it. And I found this book, and that once you get into this book, this guy, he was a court reporter for Court TV at the time, and he was in the courtroom for all of their cases, all the trials and everything. So all of it is documented in this book. So it's just really, really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I ordered my copy. I'm waiting on mine to arrive. Is there anything in the book, if you can kind of like whet the appetite of some of the viewers that may be curious about that? Is there anything that you can recall reading in the book that was a page turner for you?
A lot of it. I mean, just the fact that there are witnesses that, like, I think we mentioned it a little bit earlier, but Corey Wise, when he wasn't one of the original people that were apprehended by the police. So one of the things that people don't really get is that these guys were snitching on each other. I mean, the Black community has this big thing against snitching.
Yep.
But if you look at their confessions, they're giving each other's addresses, where you can find this guy. This is where he lives.
Yeah.
If you, I mean, I said it in the video, they're the most celebrated snitches in America that we know of. Wise, he had, when he was being searched for, he basically was telling people in the street, hey, they're looking for me because of this rape that happened to this woman. So, don't come near me, because you might also get looked at by the police. He actually told people this, and they said that to the police. That's if you look at the witness testimony, it's in there. It's in this book as well. So there's just a lot of little intricate details. Like there's another woman, Melody, I forgot her last name, but he called her from jail,
right,
and told her, look, I didn't have sex with her, I just rubbed on her legs. And she thought that was going to help him. So she goes and she tells the police, look, he didn't do it, all he did was rub on her legs. That's got to count for something, let him out, basically. But it didn't help him, because that just showed that he was actually there.
Yeah. I'm looking at this individual. I'm not sure if he's trolling or not, but he says, quote, "Stop the lies, no DNA, no evidence, only coerced confessions. The real attacker confessed they were wrongly convicted." I want to ask you, this individual, this, and I'm just gonna put this out here because you know how I do, if you've been watching my stuff. When I see comments and statements like this, I'm gonna see if this person gonna put up a shut up. Maybe not in this particular live. If you are really serious about what you're saying, Mr. Trom 9435, moderators, put my email address in the chat. I'm going to populate it, and I want to have a panel discussion with you, Mr. Trom 9435, and if you would be interested in having a panel discussion with this individual. It has to be face to face on a virtual live stream if you're interested. If not, I'll do it. But I would love for you to have it.
This is my thing. It's like individuals like this, the thing of it is they normally don't have any evidence. They don't have any, all he's probably heard is what he saw on Netflix and what he's been repeated. And so that's problematic. I mean, he'd have to do 4 months of studying like I did to even have a conversation. Like, he's going to have some information to provide to make it worth people's while to even look at it.
Or be exposed within 4 minutes of being a fool.
Right.
I mean, it took you 4 minutes to prove it. It may just take, took you 4 months rather to prove that these men were guilty. It would just take 4 minutes to show that this man does not know what he's talking about before watching World. But again, it's his invitation to accept and his to reject. But if you're going to call people liars and you're going to say that we don't know what we're talking about, I have no problem engaging individuals with the facts. All I'm asking particularly is bring the facts. I don't care about your feeling. We all got feelings. Feelings are not the factor for me. And so again, SeikoWoods@yahoo.com, Mr. Trom, if you're interested. I just need your information, your availability, dates availability, and we can possibly set something up. You say you were in New York, that's fine. I want you to be here on this BCV live though. Fine that you was in New York. That's fine. I want you to bring the receipts. We're asking for evidence. You say you was in New York at the time. But were you one of the 5 or one of the 30? Maybe this may be one of the 30. I don't know. It's possible.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who were in New York at the time. I mean, that doesn't really do anything.
What does that mean? Yeah. What does that mean? How many million people is in New York at that time? At that time? No. Shoot, like what?
So that unless you were in the park at that moment, there's really what else can you bring to the table? I mean,
Exactly.
I've spoken to people involved in it. Like I told you, I spoke to one of the 10 guys who was arrested, and I've spoken to two of the police officers. I've spoken to a friend of Yusuf Salam's in depth and detail. So, I've spoken to a lot of people.
Right.
What Yusuf Salam's friend said is that at the time she went to high school with him, that the thought with people in the school, this is his own peers thought that he was there. He was there. They just didn't think that he participated in the rape. They thought that he was in the park. He was wilding. He was doing the things because they knew who he was.
Wow.
So
okay,
they just didn't think that he was capable of raping. And it sounds like Yusuf probably did not rape the woman. Like, I don't necessarily think that all these guys like actually penetrated. I think they just were, it's like peer pressure. They're doing these things.
Simulation, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
So
grinding,
they
what
can,
you would call it back in the day, grinding. Yeah.
right. And so, people who say, oh, the DNA, okay, well that
Right.
doesn't really get it. If you listen to what they say, it doesn't jive with the information that we have anyway. There shouldn't be DNA evidence.
Yeah.
And we didn't really talk too much about Matias Reyes, but there's a reason why he is suspect in his confession.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that a
please,
little
go
bit.
ahead.
If you
Yeah.
want.
Let's take a few moments to talk about it. Go ahead, unpack that.
Yeah. So Matias Reyes is the person who is the fall guy now. He's the one who's come out. But if you read a lot of the court documents, Matias Reyes was in fear of his life, like from Corey Wise. For whatever reason, Corey Wise seemed to have some sort of pull in the prison system. Now, in the Netflix documentary, you see that Matias Reyes and Corey Wise get in a fight. But in reality, they did get into a fight. You have to ask yourself, why would they get into a fight in the first place?
Yeah.
How would these two even know each other or know of each other? And what the Richard Syracuse book says is that, and Matias Reyes is, of course, Puerto Rican. We know that there was a Puerto Rican kid with a hoodie there that nobody seemed to know his name. And Elizabeth Lederer says it in that what he just read was that they didn't know the names of these people, these two guys that were said to have been raping her. So what that says to me is there's a reason that Corey Wise would even recognize a Matias Reyes in a prison system. Like, there's tons of people in the prison. Why did these two people just happen to bump into each other and have an altercation? I think that there was something said about the what happened that night, and they got into it. I don't know what that was. I can only speculate. But what happened when Matias Reyes was locked up for other crimes is that he was locked up with other individuals that he told stories about this rape to. And so in the files, you have a gentleman named Pedro Hernandez who relays a story to the police that, hey, Matias Reyes told me this story that he was with these guys in the park and he didn't know them, but they let him kind of get involved because there was a whole bunch of kids that didn't know each other anyway. And he just comes in and he participates with them. Now, what makes me believe that this is true is that in the Richard Syracuse book, he said that Reyes had a nickname, which is Rudy. Now, if you look at the files, the documents, there's a file that refers to a Rudy being there. And that was said by Corey Wise was the one who said it. So that gives you a reason. That's how you know that Corey Wise knew that Matias Reyes was there, because he referred to him as Rudy when he was snitching, right? So he snitches on this guy, Rudy, and says Rudy took the Walkman and the what do you call it? A fanny pack. So she had a fanny pack and a Walkman. Now, he stole it. So police would have never known that that was there. How does how does this story get told that there was a fanny pack and a Walkman? Wise did tell this story to the police. It's in the video about a fanny pack. He took the fanny, or it's not in the video. It's in the court, the written confessions, right? So how would the police wouldn't know that there was a fanny pack and a Walkman? Nobody could have told them that because Patricia Miley was in a coma. There's no other way that he could have known that besides the fact that he was there to see it. And then when Matias Reyes gets questioned in 2002, once he confesses to it, he talks about taking the fanny pack and the Walkman, but he just said he did it alone. So why does he say he did it alone? Because he was, as it states in the documents, the documents many times, he was in fear for his life in the prison, and he did this so he could get a better placement in the prison system, so he would not have to be in a place where people were going to do any harm to him. So he got a better prison assignment because of this. And he also got notoriety as a hero. So there's reason to believe that he did this, and his own attorney believes that he is telling a lie. So,
and it also puts,
you know.
it also makes, it also gives a different, I guess you can say, persona to Corey Wise, because in the quote unquote documentary movie, he was seen as being innocent and, you know, and making Matias Reyes confess to it, when actually in real life, Corey Wise is the dude that, hey man, you know what? You don't, bro. You need to, bro. You know who I am. You know how I get down. You know that type of mentality, right? So the whole fear of his life makes sense when you hear the true side of what Corey Wise was really about, not the Ava Duvernay side, which she admits that it was biased and slanted.
Right. Exactly. And I forgot what I was about to say, but go ahead.
No, it was entire to Matias Reyes, or the confession or anything like that related to that, or just
it's related to Reyes, but I can't really recall off the top of my head. There's something else about Reyes that is notable, but I can't think of it off the top of my head right now.
So he's doing 30. Is he doing 31 to life or 33 to life?
Life, yeah, I know his life. So
yeah, so he's not getting out.
Yeah,
anytime soon, not at all. Okay. So I guess some other question is, what about and since these other 5 got a payoff, what does that say about the other men that were involved? They didn't get anything. They didn't get any reward.
And that has been something that's been interesting to me. Like more recently, Stephen Lopez got. They said he was in the newspaper. It said exonerated. I hadn't looked into that much, but he didn't get a payoff. So my question was always, and that's another thing about Richard Siracusa, Matias Reyes' attorney. He says that Stephen Lopez and Matias Reyes knew one another. So he tied those two together.
That's right.
So which may have been how he was able to get in this big group of guys and you know, get along with them, as if some of them recognized who he was, and it seems like he may have known Stephen Lopez. So you know, and I lost my train of thought again for some reason. It's getting late. I'm on the East Coast.
Yeah, let me ask you this question, man. We have to wrap it up. Did you hear the story, or the news about the 5 planning to sue Trump for slander and defamation?
Yeah, I read about that. It was like a year or 2 ago, I think, that they did that, but I don't think that's going anywhere.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to get your thoughts about the. I don't think it will either, as well.
Yeah.
What are any final or closing thoughts, man? You know, regarding what are your plans? What are you had kind of like went dark a little bit. You know, you was off grid, you know, for a while. Are you back? Are you doing some more cameo stuff, or are you just gonna basically put your finger in the air and see how things are gonna how the wind blows it?
Yeah, I still like doing my content and stuff. You know, I had gone off and I was doing some other businesses stuff, but you know, I always come back to this. Like I said, I've been doing this since 2006 and was talking about it with people way before that. So it's like, you know, trying to find ways to benefit and help Black community is kind of like what I do. And you know, I think the first step to make any kind of change is create awareness. And I just think that so many of us are just unaware of what's going on out here, and how bad the victimhood narrative paints us. The light that it paints us in, and how we see ourselves, is greatly diminished when we look at ourselves as victims. And unfortunately, too many of us will fight tooth and nail to try and maintain that victim narrative. And I just don't understand it. So I'm going to keep posting stuff, and hopefully I'll do some more on this case maybe in the future. I don't know. I've reached out to several people about this, and I've got recordings that I can't put out, unfortunately, with people that one guy that was there. I do have a recording of that, of one of Yusuf Salam's friends. I have recordings of that I just, I'll never put that information out, but if something happens to me, it'll be, it'll go out there.
Look, run it to me, brother. Run it to me. Let me. I'll keep it for you for posterity purposes.
Okay, all right.
But man, let people
I'll
know
let
how
you know offline if you want to listen to it. We can.
Oh
set
yeah,
up
no
a
doubt,
time.
no doubt. I definitely would do that. Well, let people know, man, how they can reach out to you. Get your content. I'll put that information in the description as well below.
Yeah, definitely check out Consider Culture on here on YouTube. Channel is somebody says cite my sources. There's plenty of sources on this, like the video. There's a video. It's my most viewed video on the Consider Culture channel is the video that led to this conversation. This discussion is basically like a documentary on the Central Park 5 case.
Really good.
And so if you want to take a look at that, definitely go take a look at that, and you'll see all my sources there. And you can also go to this website, centralpark5.com. There's lots of references there that take you to all the court files. Now, New York City put out a website of their own, and it has all of the court documents. But
That's
like I said,
it'll
take
too.
you. Yep, it'll take you months to get through all that stuff. But if you go through it, it's like you'll be shocked and amazed at some of the information that's there.
Yeah. So when what Chris was saying, she was saying not you, brother. She was talking about yours is right. She's talking about the guy that's trolling Trom for him to cite his sources. Your sources, she said, is good. So.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So. But man, listen, man, I appreciate you coming on. Again, this was long overdue, but of course, in God's timing and providence, I'm glad we were able to finally cross paths and link up and collaborate and do something of mutual interest and also, edification and support for everyone here, man. So, I'll be keeping in touch with you, my friend. And I'll let you know if any other information I want to get and pull your expertise on. I'll be hitting you up.
Okay, I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for everybody who watched and listened.
All right, man. Good to talk to you, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, have a good one.
You too, man. Later. All right, y'all. That is Mr. She. Listen, Consider Culture. I would encourage you all to check him out. I would encourage you all to go to his website and also pull up his information. Thank you, Brother Proverbs, for the link. Consider Culture. Go to YouTube. Go to this channel there. You will definitely not be disappointed in doing that. And also, the links are also below in the video description as well. So you guys can check out the content, check out his videos. If you have not watched that documentary, you need to check it out. That pretty much is the jump off and the springboard to everything this man has been talking about. So I definitely appreciate his content, appreciate his work and his contribution to our community and making sure that we are, informed. The Bible says my people perish for lack of knowledge, y'all. And Satan has the black community in a chokehold. He has the black community in a chokehold, y'all. Stronghold, chokehold, toehold, figureful, leg hold, all of that. And so, again, thank you, Chi. Thank you, man. Blessings to you and your family. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here and to join me in this discussion. All right, ladies and gentlemen, just wanted to thank everyone. Moderators, thank you for holding it down. Facebook family, thank you all for being there as well, too. And those who will be watching on the replay, thank you for being here and taking time out of your schedule as well. Tomorrow is the Lord's Day, but most importantly, the resurrection of our Lord. We do not just serve a dead Savior. Our Savior lives, and he is sitting at the right hand of the Father, making intercession for the saints according to the will of God. If you do not have a saving relationship with Christ, let me tell you something. You have no relationship at all. Well, actually, you do. It's just not a saving one. And understand this. You do not have to live in the state that you are in. We're not talking about perfection. We're talking about direction. If you understand that this platform that we have here, that I have here, is for the purpose of raising awareness, but most importantly for the purpose of providing a biblical worldview, which points people back to God, which points people back to Christ, to help us as believers to take a stand and make a stand in this culture and in this society, in this world, because we're salt and light We're called to be change agents. And so this is not by accident or by happenstance you have come to the right place. Understanding that your sin will be paid for. Either you pay for it eternally, separated from God, in hell, for all eternity, which is a holding place, holding cell, holding tank, until the lake of fire, or you place your sins upon Christ, the Lamb, the one who has already paid for our sins and has taken on the sin debt that you and I can never, ever pay and will take eternity to pay off. And so I would encourage you, understanding that your sin deserves punishment, deserves death. All of us do not know when we will take our last breath. In eternity, you will spend somewhere. And so I would encourage you to spend it with the one who has created you in his own image and in his own likeness. You are not by accident. You are not a chance, and you are not an event. You have been made in God's image with purpose, with value, and with worth. And so don't waste your life. You have been here all this time. You know how we do here. We want to present Christ, but present Christ in his glory, present Christ in ways that are practical. We're not talking about perfection. We're not talking about you have to check all the boxes before you can come to Christ. No, you better come to Christ now. Stop letting Satan pimp you and play you. He is the master manipulator. He is the master pimp player. Stop letting him play you. The Bible says that Satan is the god of this world, and he has blinded the minds of those who do not believe. You can be good, you can be moral, but that does not make you righteous before a thrice holy God. He demands perfection, and that perfection is only found in his Son. And when you are in his Son, you are safe. You are safe in his arms. So that is my appeal to you. Again, your choice to accept or to reject, but what you cannot say, you have not been told the truth. So anyway, thank you all for joining. Please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you all for being here. Let people know about this content. Let people know about this channel. I will be coming back, Lord willing, to make a follow-up video with Miss Lakeisha Keisha, because I understand that there were some things that she said about me that we all know are not true. And then at the same time, making statements and lies that she knows that she cannot stand and hold up. If she can't defend the Central Park 5, then what do you think she's going to do with me when I have to drop receipts on her? But nonetheless, unfortunately, she has subscribers and influence, and so we don't allow lies of the enemy to go unchecked. And so I'm going to respond with the truth. I'm going to respond with the receipts, respond with facts. But a response will be forthcoming. Make no mistakes about that. Make no mistake about that. But you see the links below. Please support the ministries. Please support this channel as the Lord leads, whether through the BCV store or through tangible expressions of love and support. We do appreciate that. All right. But anyway, that is my time. I do thank you all so much for yours. Y'all know the drill. Whatever you do all to the ground of God. God bless.
Thank you for sharing this night. God bless you. Good night.
It's time to say goodbye for now.
It's over, ladies and gentlemen.
Mama, I love you. P.O.P. Hold it down. Right, these all good pimp spoil, baby, for life.
All lies will be exposed. That's all. And anyone who takes that the wrong way, know why they take it the wrong way. The truth is the light.
Please wake up.
Book chapter verse.